Welcome back, everyone, to psychology studies that should never have happened. Today we are talking about a study involving sexuality, brain alterations, and prostitution. The patient was codenamed B19. He was a 24-year-old man. Growing up, he had an abusive alcoholic father and a mother who showed him little affection. At the age of 24, he had been discharged from the army for homosexual behavior. This experiment took place in 1972, and homosexuality was only taken out of the DSM in 1973. B19 was suffering with addiction, chronic depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and emotional dysregulation. The experiment begins when B19 is referred to Tulane University School of Medicine. This is based in America, New Orleans. It is where Robert Heath and his team of psychiatrists was starting to put electrodes into animals and human brains to understand how the brain's reward systems worked. Their previous research had shown that the septum region and the nucleus accumbens could create pleasure when stimulated with electrons. Heath and his team saw it fit to try and help B19 become heterosexual through counter-conditioning. The following clip shows how in a previous experiment they had already implanted electrodes into a woman's brain to look at how reward centers work.
Not surprisingly, the experiments were controversial, but the electrodes did have an effect, especially near an area of the brain called the nucleus accumbens. Heath even let his patients control their own stimulation.
I find this button the best.
That's number 2 button.
Most pleasurable.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel?
I made a small joke yesterday. I don't know if I should repeat it or not.
I'd like to hear it.
Do you think it's worth repeating?
I sure do.
What about the very deep electrode all the way down?
You're trying to tell me how it excites you, is that it?
Oh, I think it's somewhat of a sexy button.
Yeah.
They completed the same procedure for B19, stimulating the pleasure regions with electrodes that were inserted into his brain. To start with, B19 was tested with EEG for when he was watching heterosexual porn. They found no arousal and a calming effect when it was turned off. Over the coming weeks, B19's pleasure and reward centers were triggered daily. They also got B19 to watch heterosexual porn. B19 described it as a high he always wanted. During this time, B19 described an improvement in mood, and during the experiment, B19 reported becoming sexually turned on by females. The experimenters wanted to go one step forward, as if based in some dystopian world where the powers that be can do anything. The experiments got a prostitute to come and spend time with B19. He was given support and encouragement and managed to have sexual intercourse. B19 continued to have counselling after the experiment. 11 months on, and B19 had spent the majority of this time having sexual relations with a married woman. He reported only 2 homosexual acts since this time, and these acts were for money. Lots of details seem to be missing from the study, and they didn't prove that homosexuality was an extinguished behaviour. You could argue that the team made him bisexual, and it was the social pressure that caused conformity to heterosexuality. Alfred King suggested that we all sit on the following continuum. The latest figures in the UK suggest that 93% of the population identify as heterosexual. This appears to present the idea that heterosexuality is the orientation that is most seen in the human population. The remaining 7% appear to lie somewhere on the continuum. It appears from the study that you can also condition people away from their sexual tendencies. It makes sense that we are naturally pulled towards behaviors that would increase the chance of reproduction. However, potentially underneath we are just sexual beings that be conditioned to find excitement in lots of different stimulus. If you have enjoyed this video and you want to know more about sexuality, or you want to learn more about studies that should never have happened, please like and subscribe below. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.